We have to face something difficult. World War II has finally ended. Not as living memory, but as history. Never again has failed. Not as rhetoric, but as fact. And we're living through the actual failure. All the institutions built on its lessons are proving inadequate to the moment. Hey folks, I'm Tad Sturmer. I'm a public historian and an American scholar of resistance history at the University of Southern Denmark and the author of A Resistance History of the United States. One of the first things that I got to do yesterday when I got back was speak on a panel at my university about Trump's war on science. I sat in a room with a bunch of Danish students who wanted to understand what this means for them. Not as observers, but as active members of a learning community and as scholars who have to do their work in a world where one of the largest knowledge-producing machines in human history, the United States, has been systematically repurposed. And they ask sharp questions, like the kind I get from all of you. What are the long-term consequences when America doesn't just retreat from honest scholarship, but actively redirects its resources toward creating what I'm calling academic slop? Yeah, I have no imagination, but it works. But it's misinformation, pseudo-scholarship, engineered to serve the regime's narrative, not the promotion of knowledge, of understanding. The Tylenol autism debacle isn't an anomaly, it's a case study. It shows what happens when the machinery gets captured and then weaponized. And these students, all students, they have to navigate that landscape now. American academic slop, AI-generated garbage, Russian disinformation, all of it mixing together. And so the basic work of scholarship, finding reliable knowledge, building on solid foundations, becomes an exercise in constant verification and constant doubt. So they wanted to know, how do we do this? What does it mean to be a student and a scholar when you can't trust the provenance of anything? Maybe even your textbooks are untrustworthy because they come from the United States. But the question that stayed with me came near the end. A student asked it with something I can only describe as generous hope. How long will this last? Now, as you might expect, underneath that question is an architecture of assumptions. The American people will wake up. The Constitution will snap back into place. The structures will correct. This is a fever. Fevers break. The institutions exist for moments like this. The guardrails will engage. Someone will say no and mean it. Weren't the founders geniuses? American liberal nationalists keep quoting them. I told the students to strap in. This is a generational fight. I hated saying it. It sucks. I'm not going to lie to students. We're 8 months in and we can see it clearly now. The institutions have already failed. Not failing, not might fail, not straining under the weight, have failed. The Trump regime has changed structures, yes, but more importantly, it has changed the culture. Talk to university administrators about what they're willing to fund now, what topics they're comfortable with having on the class schedule. Talk to researchers dependent on federal grants about how they frame their work, what they emphasize, what they bury, what they sell to the highest bidder. The chilling effect isn't coming, it's here and it's operational. The judiciary has been captured, not just the Supreme Court, the entire federal bench, and reshaped in ways that will outlive everyone I was talking to in that room. And the shutdown we're living through now might finish off Congress as anything more than a ceremonial body, making the midterms worse than illegitimate, making them irrelevant. Stephen Miller declaring people nothing. ICE follows his logic into Chicago neighborhoods, Black American citizens detained without cause. Where's the mechanism that stops that? Where's the accountability? Show me the institution or individual that says no and makes it stick, that can say or else and have consequences follow. Trump understands there isn't one. Putin understands that. Netanyahu understands that. The lesson of 2025 is that accountability was always more fragile than we pretended. Now it's gone. And that's what I needed those students to understand. There will be no return to what was. I just spent time in Spain learning about the fascist evolution and in France learning about the resistance to fascism. And Marc Bloch's words ring clear. Holding on to the past is a kind of fog of comfort that keeps people from understanding the present with enough clarity to act. And this isn't a detour. America will not snap back to being a reliable partner in knowledge production and democratic norms and the basic machinery of international cooperation that defined the post-World War II era. It might, in fact, become an active adversary in all those things. The world that was supposed to be these students' inheritance, The world carefully constructed from the ashes of World War II. The world of institutions and agreements and norms that seemed permanent. That world has ended. The world in which Ezra Klein can just sit and pontificate without any education and any real knowledge and still be considered important with something to say. And even if there was regime change in America tomorrow, even if by some miracle sanity returned to American governance overnight, the damage has been done. The world has seen what America is willing to become, willing to tolerate, willing to do to its own people and its own principles. You can't unsee that, and you can't unknow it. So we're in transition. It's a moment of, I don't need to tell you, considerable instability, and no one has a map for it, and don't trust anybody who tries to tell you that they got one for you. We have patterns from history. We have guidelines that we might follow. We have warnings that should be heeded. But there's no roadmap from here to there because there is no there that we can recognize. Now, this should have been where the conversation with the students just died, where we all just sat around in the weight of it and found nothing else to say. But something else happened. The students didn't perform despair. They wanted to know how to build. They understood that if the world they inherited has ended, all right, then they have the chance to build something new. Not naively, not pretending things aren't as glooming as they are, but with clear-eyed determination to matter in this moment, not just survive it. And that's what I thought about John F. Kennedy. In January 1961, Kennedy stood before a generation facing nuclear annihilation. He told them, "Now the trumpet summons us again, not as a call to bear arms, though arms we need, not as a call to battle, though embattled we are, but a call to bear the burden of a long twilight struggle, year in and year out, rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, a struggle against the common enemies of man, tyranny, poverty, disease, and war itself." He asked that generation to forge a grand and global alliance, North and South, East and West, that can assure a more fruitful life for all mankind. Then he said, "In the long history of the world, only a few generations have been granted the role of defending freedom in its hour of maximum danger." It got me thinking, are we at such a moment? Is that group of students and students like them around the world that generation? I think we are in such a moment. And I think they are that generation. Not in the way that Kennedy imagined. He was thinking about superpower competition, about nuclear standoff. But defending freedom in its hour of maximum danger. Oh yeah. The danger now comes from the reboot of authoritarians we thought were finished in 1945. Back with new tools, new rhetoric, but the same fundamental contempt for human dignity and freedom. And that grand alliance that Kennedy called for, does it now begin in Europe and radiate outward? North and South, East and West, but no longer with America as the center, as guarantor, as leader, but with America as the problem to be contained while something new gets built. If that's true, and watching these students grapple with it, I think it is, then this moment is both troubling and clarifying. And either way, it's vital. It's clarifying because when everything is genuinely on the line, you can demand absolute honesty about everything, especially values. Do you care about democracy? And what does that actually mean to you? Not as an abstraction, but as a daily practice. What is freedom? Who deserves it? How do we protect it? What are you willing to risk for it? Define your terms. Don't let anyone slop over them. And make people own their labels. I mean, these are always too slippery these days. Use the word fascist, not because it stings, but because it is precise. These aren't seminar questions anymore. We are through that looking glass. They are immediate. They determine what you do tomorrow morning, what stands you're willing to take, what risks you'll accept. And most importantly, what do we do about it? In my work, I know that all resistance begins in the mirror. It starts with truth-telling, especially to yourself. In a moment when American institutions are being systematically corrupted to produce slop rather than knowledge, standing up for honest science and honest humanities becomes resistance. Work that pursues truth wherever it leads, without partisanship, without dogma. Not dramatic resistance, not performative resistance, the foundational kind, the kind that might actually matter over decades, that might matter in whatever is next. When you can't trust the structures, you have to trust the work, the people doing it honestly. You have to build networks, your tribe, person by person, institution by institution. You gotta do it horizontally. This is what defense looks like now. Not appealing to authorities who will fail to protect you in your moment of need, but becoming authorities who protect each other through commitment to the work. The truth will set us free. Maybe not today, maybe not for years. Remember that it takes years for resistance movements to get going anywhere, even under the most oppressive regimes. The French resistance didn't get going until 2 years after the Nazis began their occupation. But a commitment to truth, to calling things by their right names, to applying our terms accurately and representing our principles clearly, that can be our common ground. That can be a form of resistance. That's why the French resistance drew on historians like Marc Bloch, who flocked to them. And it doesn't matter what letters you have after your last name, what partisan camps we're supposed to inhabit. That, I think, is the alliance Kennedy was talking about, built from the ground up. But this is not 1933, and don't let anybody tell you that it is. It feels like it, sure. The stakes are as high. The authoritarians are back. The patterns are sickeningly familiar. And the institutions are failing in parallel ways. We can learn a lot, but it is not 1933. It is 2025, which is just a reboot, not a repeat. There are new characters, new contexts, new technologies, new tools for both oppression and resistance, and new possibilities that I don't think we can see yet. And that's what I wanted the students to understand. They're living through the hour of maximum danger that Kennedy described. The post-war order has failed. That world is over. The era they thought they were inheriting has ended. And they get to decide what comes next. Not by wishing the old world back into existence, but by building something new from first principles, by returning to the basics. What is true? What matters? What are we willing to defend? It's clarifying work. It's vital work. It's the kind that might actually build something that lasts because it's built on bedrock rather than on assumptions. Kennedy called his generation to bear the burden of a long twilight struggle. This generation gets the same call, but in reverse. Not to defend the world as it is, but to build the world that should be in the ruins of what failed. What a time to be alive. Glad I'm back.